They made a mistake. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. I have never heard Barack Obama so black or white, so Manichaean in his judgment. Sony Pictures was wrong in letting the North Koreans close down an American movie. Wrong in acting to let the bad guys in that closed-in country censor a motion picture it doesn't like. Wrong in not calling him first before buckling before the dictator in North Korea. This is Obama laying it out and on the line today in a press conference that signaled all the audacity he's packed into the week since the November election. The deal with China on climate change, the executive order giving legal protection to millions of people who came into this country illegally, the decision this week to restore full diplomatic relations, including the posting of an American ambassador with the communist government in Cuba, even to taking questions from only women reporters in today's press conference. Where will this Obama audacity take us? If he keeps this up for 2 years, could the sky be the limit? I'm joined right now by David Corn, Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones and an MSNBC political analyst, and by actor, writer, and director Sean Penn, who joins me now by phone. First of all, here's the president speaking today about Sony's decision to pull The Interview, the movie that inspired the hacking. Let's watch.
Sony's a corporation. It suffered significant damage. There were threats against its employees. I am sympathetic to the concerns that they faced. Having said all that, yes, I think they made a mistake. We cannot have a society in which some dictator someplace can start imposing censorship here in the United States. Or even worse, imagine if producers and distributors and others start engaging in self-censorship because they don't want to offend the sensibilities of somebody whose sensibilities probably need to be offended.
Sean Penn's in Los Angeles by phone. Mr. Penn, what do you make of the president's position? What's your position?
Well, I would agree with the president. I think that, I'm not speaking as an advocate for the motion picture industry or as a critic, but I think that we have to realize that this is a genuine emergency. This is the popularization of cyber war, and it requires an alternate threshold on the thinking and the language that we use. So I think that when Sony or representatives of Sony deny that they pulled the film and put it on distributors, it really is not recognizing the same responsibility a parent has to drive the show on response when something threatens their child. In this case, it doesn't matter whether it's an individual, a government, or a company. The response of Sony should have been to immediately say, we'll make our apologies later and we'll put it online, open and free for the world to see. So I would say there'd be a cop-out for Sony to hide behind the distributors, and on the other hand, the distributors themselves could have been boycotted by all the studios, and I think that should be considered, that all the studios sit back and say, well, we won't put any films out until you're ready to distribute the films that are made through free speech and free thinking.
What do you think? You worked in the movie industry. You've been involved in production and everything. You know both ends of it, the creative end and the money end. What stopped these guys from doing something that would have looked gutsy and courageous and Churchillian, like Winston Churchill in World War II, instead of looking like Neville Chamberlain? They looked like the guys holding the umbrella. They must have known through their PR guys they'd look terrible. Why'd they choose to look terrible rather than courageous?
Well, I want to join them in looking terrible in the sense that I think even me and the government and them, we all look terrible because we have, of course, the UN Security Council to sit down and get the Chinese, the Russians, all at the table with us and say, this is a threat to all of us. It's very similar to what happened in the University of Texas Tower once Charles Whitman popularized, taking a weapon and shooting it at civilians on the street. It shows the possibilities, and once those possibilities go out into the culture, just like guns, we've got a computer in every household, and this is not technology that is far from the hands of anyone.
Let me go over to David Corn. Your view on this as a guy who writes about rights all the time, and It does seem to be an easy call. Why didn't they, as Sean Penn just said, they could have gone other routes besides the Regal Theater chain. They could have gone and said, we're going to put this on a network, and they could have put it out themselves on a website.
Right. They could have said, we take these threats serious to the theaters, and if they feel they can't have security, we're going to do it another way. I mean, at the end of the day, unless they put it out, they still can put it out. They can put it out tonight on a website. They can put it out for free, or they could set up their own website, and anyone wants to see it pays $10, and that's it. If they don't do that at some point, probably some point soon, it just sends the message that this works. I've heard some conservatives today criticize the president for saying what he did too late after Sony already did what it's done. And the question, though, is this going to set a precedent or not? And that's why I think it's right for the president and for the others to say we don't agree and try to give them some more spine, give them some support, back them up a bit. And so Sony still has a chance to make this right.
But they're engaged now in what looks to be, and Sean Penn, I want to bring you in. Sony Pictures is now engaged in kind of a dialogue with Pyongyang now, with the Koreans, North Koreans. The North Koreans thanked them today in some sort of transmission, a statement saying, thank you for doing what we told you to do. If you keep doing what we told you to do, don't show this picture, don't exhibit this picture any way or anyhow, then we won't cause you any more trouble. We won't release any more of the information from the hacking. It seems like they're almost in league now because they're being thanked for it and being told, if you keep being a good boy now by our lights, we won't bother you anymore. It's an engagement of relations now, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Sony has made themselves almost irrelevant in what's going to be a much, much bigger and more dangerous story. They might have been, the trigger that participated in what was a mistake here. But again, I think that if we don't take this on a United Nations level, if it isn't coming, if we aren't waking up and recognizing that what happens once Pandora's box is opened in this level, and to recognize that we just got hit by a truck and we can't tell ourselves that, we've got a mild headache and we can go home and go to bed because you're going to wake up with blood in the brain. And that's where we are on this cyber war issue. The declaration has been said. And it's not Sony, it's not even North Korea. North Korea is the size of Mississippi. That could be handled by the mean-spirited in a day. It's the indirect promotion of this, and it's also that which gets into the minds of a culture with a lot of disease in it.
Is there any way that the creative community, meaning the directors, the writers, the actors, are able to leverage this? Can you, I mean, it's always dangerous in a very tricky career to make demands beyond just pay me and put me to work, but is there any way actors or writers, for example, could say, you're going to greenlight this movie? Okay, when you greenlight it, it stays green, and no dictator's going to stop it. Do you think there's any chance, or is that just too far a hope, that the creative community will say, I'm not making movies to be stopped by the bad guys?
Well, I think it's sure that there will be discussions and there will be attempts to put lobbies together on that basis. But I think that the very first thing that those, whether they're in Hollywood or Wisconsin, can do is stand up as a country and stand up as united countries in demanding that this be taken with in the kind of serious way that its threat represents.
Well, let me show you more of the president. Here's President Obama today, and I thought it was a first-rate press conference. Clarity, as I said, Manichaean, good guys, bad guys. It wasn't the soft line he sometimes has taken before. Here, talking about North Korea and the Sony hacking. Let's watch again the president today.
I think it says something interesting about North Korea, that they decided to have the state mount an all-out assault on a movie studio because of a satirical movie starring Seth Rogen and James Flacco. I love Seth, and I love James, but the notion that was a threat to them, I think, gives you some sense of the kind of regime we're talking about here. They caused a lot of damage, and we will respond. We will respond proportionally, and we'll respond in a place and time and manner that we choose.
I wonder when you make a movie, and you've made some really important films, and I was thinking part of the decision to make a movie is that you want the bad guy to hear it. It isn't just a joke by a Seth Rogen, kind of a satire movie, but it wouldn't bother you a bit to know that the people being satirized, being lampooned, hear it, and it hurts them, and it humiliates them. What did you make of the president there saying that it's a Seth Rogen movie, it's a bit of a over-the-top, in the begin with, it's an over-top movie, that it would scare them?
Well, I go back to, I think it was 1997 when Martin Scorsese's Kundun was coming out. It's the film on Tibet. And the Chinese were in negotiations with Disney, who backed down tremendously on the release of that film as a result. And, whether or not it's the president, framing it as a marginalized threat based on it being a humorous movie, or it really goes deeper than all of that to me. And I think that when Eisner was interviewed and he said that Disney was not in the human rights business, they were in the entertainment business, that he really missed the mark. We all are in the human rights business today, whether in our economy or in our homes. And I do think that Sony does have an opportunity now to do something heroic, but I think but more importantly, I think that Moscow and Beijing and Washington have something to do that's very important, because this is something that threatens all governments, all corporations. It calls into question where we divide our capitalism in our recognition of human rights. And I think it's a really, really big historic moment. And if it's not taken by the reins by some brave people, then we're going to be heading into a world we'd never imagined.
Sean, thank you for coming on, and thank you for the great work you've done, whether it was Harvey Milk or it was Joe Wilson, a particular movie I cared about, or it was all the other Mystic River, all the great performances, Dead Man Walking, everyone, it seemed, dealt with an important issue, and you were on the good side. Thanks so much for you, and thank you, David Corn, and thank you for our help in getting Sean here today. Coming up, President Obama showed off a real sense of elan, I think is the right word, in his press conference today. It was kind of a quiet confidence. It wasn't the swagger, sometimes idiotic swagger of W. It was real. It was human. And this is a changed president, I'm arguing, a confident president, and you can see it in the way he talks and acts right now. Something good has developed since the election. And if you watch today's press conference, you may have noticed that the president made some history today. He called only on women reporters. Didn't mention it. It just happened. I noticed it halfway through. In fact, somebody called it to my attention. We were covering it live. More on that sort of a decision in a minute. And this is Hardball, a place for politics.